we're going to talk about your favourite person now.
Oh, what's this sentient dog poo bag got to say?
The conversation around Sean Plunket today is based around the idea of, this is a bit of a strange one because I think you all know this, but when we get a chance to highlight the ludicrous nature of some people who think they're impartial and fair, and they're delving into dis and misinformation, and they're driving their audience towards dis and misinformation, we want to show you. So anyway, I've got a bunch of stuff to say about this 2.5 minutes with this load of pancake batter. So we will get to it, but the idea about this, Chewy, is we're looking at what Sean Plunket needs for evidence for his statements, right? So what does Sean Plunket need when it comes to evidence for his statements? What drives Karen? What drives Karen's opinion? What goes off in Karen's brain to say, yep, I agree with that, or yep, that supports my narrative, and what goes off in Karen's brain to go, that's wrong? It's really important to check this out. Let's have a look.
To the fact that the Atlas Network, gosh, it spent $75,000 in the Pacific region, wasn't it, in the last year or something? Hugely influential, not. But most of this madness came from journalist Mihingarangi, or better known as Joanne Forbes from Fielding.
Sorry, pause that, Pat.
Yeah.
I was wondering where this came from. I was looking at the comment section of our video last night, and heaps of people pointing out that her name's Joanne and that she's a plastic Māori, and she's changed her name at a later time, and she's not really Māori. And so this is good. This is a straight pipeline of what Sean can weaponize some of New Zealand's worst people.
There you go.
Mihingarangi made a documentary about this. You may have seen it. Gosh, I can't remember the name. I think it was basically all about how the voice vote got lost in Australia and how it was all evil right-wing conspiracy theorist people like Atlas. Well, we find out from David Farrar this morning that Joanne Forbes was dead wrong. And in fact, if anyone from Atlas was involved in doing anything, they were advocating for the other side, for the yes vote, not against it, not for no. And when we want to talk about money and influence, and Joanne Mihingarangi Forbes is making a song and dance about that, I'd just like to let you know this. She seems to be able to work anywhere. She works for TV3. Her stuff appears on RNZ. I think
it might be a bit of the green-eyed monster here, Joey.
So she's part of the select little group of journalists who all share each other's stuff, the spin-off, everything, and they all disappear up each other's foo-foo valves. But it's a good gig, She and a woman called Annabelle Lee Mather, also styles herself as a journalist. They own a company called the Aotearoa Media
You style
Collective.
yourself as a fucking journalist.
I know. I think it's called projection, Joey.
Currently getting from you, the taxpayer. I can tell you that a couple of years back, 2022, they got a total of more than, they got $452,000 for one project and $187,000 for another project. So that's five.
So just be clear on what he's doing here, right? And we know that Karen does this. Karen is pointing to their badness by saying they've received public money. This is a part of the conversation I'm going to have at the end, but just to make it really clear.
Around $640,000 to
so this is his evidence as to why we shouldn't be listening to them. His evidence is they've had in the past public funding.
And of course, Mihingarangi Forbes isn't an impartial journalist. She's got very clear views on Te Tiriti. That's why she presumably prefers the name Mihingarangi rather than Joanne, which is her birth name. That buys a lot of influence. It's certainly, by many factors, more than Atlas Network, if it's ever spent any money on issues in New Zealand, which I don't think it has. I don't think anyone can prove that. That's how money, influence and corruption works. You buy off the journalists with the Public Interest Journalism Fund.
So here's the conversation. Now, the first thing is, can I just say this really clearly? There's two things. That is racism, what you've just heard, right?
Absolutely.
It's a little bit like this. Let me give it to you in a clearer context. The reason questioning Barack Obama's birth certificate was racist was because he was black. If you had have questioned John McCain's birth certificate, it wouldn't have been racist because John McCain is white. You are questioning his birth certificate because he's black, implying not a part of this land, right? It's exactly the same context to Māori name, Mihingarangi Forbes, Joanne. It's exactly the same thing. The reason that you're taking umbrage at a change of a name, if that is indeed true. I don't know, maybe Mihingarangi is her middle name. My dad's middle name was Bede, and that's what he got known his whole life. I don't know, but the reason that it's utterly, utterly, utterly racist is because you're bringing up the Māori-ness of someone and saying they're wrong, and like what you just said, Chewy. What did you call it? A plastic Māori. He never said that, but
Plastic Māori.
The second thing is,
some of his army of trolls certainly like that too.
The second thing is, and I've said this a dozen times, remember, he is now critical of someone, though I haven't spelt it out entirely yet because I'll give Chewy a go first, but he is now critical of someone because of public money they got in the past. Like Sean Plunket did for a good portion of his years. Mm-hmm. He got public money on Fair Go. He got public money at RNZ. And if we're looking to the past, I mean, I don't care about people getting public money today, but if we're looking to the past when people got public money as a reason to not believe them, I present a mirror, Mrs. Plunket. Chewy, I've got a bunch of stuff to talk about, which is actually not the points yet, but I don't want to hog it all. So you jump in first if you've got anything to say.
So this massive revelation that Mihi Forbes at birth obviously chose the name Joanne, and then at some point decided that she wanted to reflect more of her Māori upbringing by giving herself a Māori name. Wow, what crack journalism from Sean Plunket.
You mean Oliver? Oliver Sean Plunket, as someone says in the chat. Oliver's his first name. Oliver's his first name. Doesn't use.
What's Oliver's first name?
Oliver Sean Plunket.
We have to call him Oliver from now on. Old Ollie Plunket. Ollie's too rad. It reminds me of skateboarding. But look, here's the thing. He's about that far off from bringing in some sort of blood quantum argument that Mihi's not Māori enough. You know, what percentage of you? Mihi's father's Māori, her mother's not. And people go, that's not enough. The accepted thing is, if you can fuck a papa Māori, you are Māori. That is it.
Yep.
Like it's not a question whether you look Māori, you have blonde hair and green eyes. There's plenty of Māori down here in the South Island that have very white skin and blue eyes. They're still fuck papa Māori. Mm. That's it. That's all that needs to be. And when people make that argument of are you Māori enough, when someone like Mihi does more to show that she's Māori, like take a Māori name, like get moko, like speak more reo, then suddenly they're a plastic Māori and they're not Māori enough. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
It's just that people don't like seeing it, and she's a woman journalist, and Ollie hates that. He hates women journalists more than anything.
This is a really important part about this, and I want us to see this and remember this. Okay, all of us, me included. So Sean Plunket's standard for evidence. Now, David Farrar is the co-founder of the Taxpayers Union. The Taxpayers Union gets funding, is connected to, certainly is alongside the Atlas network. Here is a newsroom article from late last year. As a free market think tank, the Taxpayers Union principles are clear. It is declared its association with the Global Atlas Network umbrella group.
Oh, but that's a conspiracy theory, though.
But it's acceptable for the funding of such an influential group to be a black box. And what about its direct influence on politicians and policies? Later on in that article, it says, as president of chair of World Taxpayers Association as an Atlas work partner, gets some travel expenses paid. The Taxpayers Union also won awards and travel scholarships from the Atlas Network, chaired by New Zealander Debbie Gibbs, who you talked about last night, daughter of the businessman Alan Gibbs, a long-time supporter of ACT, etc., etc., etc. So, David Farrar...
But that's a conspiracy theory.
But David Farrar is the co-founder of the Taxpayers Union, right? So I'm not saying I'm actually not saying there's anything untoward going on. I don't need to, but what I can say is there is a clear connection between David Farrar and the Atlas Network, right? So you could say there's a clear conflict of interest, but Sean Plunket takes David Farrar's word as gospel, even though there is the appearance of a conflict of interest. So what it does, if it suits his narrative, is it doesn't matter where the conflicts come, it suits his narrative. So he says yes to David Farrar, even though you can draw a line straight from him to the Atlas Network. Now, when there's no evidence of a conflict of interest, all he can say is taxpayer funded, as a coverall to ignore the work of people like Mihingarangi Forbes. So on one side, there is actual evidence of a connection that is a conflict of interest to the information he's got from that person, and he'll happily accept that as evidence. On the other side, there is no evidence of a conflict of interest, and he's going to poo-poo that because it matches the narrative he wants to sell. All Karen has got is taxpayer funded. Taxpayer funded coverall means I can ignore it. Taxpayer funded means wrong, bad, out there. Whereas wrong, bad, out there, you could easily put a connection in between the Atlas Network, the Taxpayers Union, and David Farrar. I want to make this clear. I'm not saying David's done anything wrong, but there is a line there. You can see it. But he's happy to take his word that Atlas has spent nothing. And actually, in Australia, Atlas only spent $75,000. And if they were going to vote for yes rather than no, whichever way it went. He'll take David Farrar's opinion for that as gospel and as evidence for why Atlas Network has nothing. Yet the people who have got nothing to do with Atlas, he'll blow them off as being biased because public money. That's his level. So, but in other words, his standard of evidence he needs is whatever suits my narrative. I know we know this, but I just wanted to make it very clear for you. Remember, he told me in a podcast that I've played before, woke means anything I don't agree with. That's what he said to me. I've got the clip. Evidence is anything that already works into my narrative, or, and we don't know this, and I'm not saying that this is the case, potentially there's some funders behind them who actually, maybe it means correct is what my funders want to have. What's better, to have like black money in the background that we don't know about and we don't know the contract, or to have an open actual contract that's publicly available from New Zealand On Air funding? Which is safer? Which should we be able to read both of them? Anyway, that's what I wanted to say, Chewy, about that.
What percentage of Ollie's funding is public money, just gone through somebody else's hands?
Yeah, exactly.
We talked about this, right? Ollie is, of course, not on the public tip because he's far too honourable for that. But the Wright Family Foundation that fund him absolutely are on the public tip.
300 million.
On the chain of early childhood centres and birthing centres. They get a massive amount of public funding, and with that, they have so much leftover discretionary spending that they can personally bankroll Ollie to be a toxic, leftover bag of dog shit on the walking track that you really like, and really just stir up some of New Zealand's worst internet dwellers and point them at people.
And remember, Chewy,
like I bet if you go to Mihi's social networks and that sort of thing, the comments on it will be vile. Someone in the chat just mentioned going to Plunket's page and just seeing the quality of discourse that this man stirs up is disgusting.
Oh, and also, just remember as well, then, this is about money. Chewy, you and I have sat in a meeting with high-level media people like last year, where they said to us that the platform is burning through 150,000 a month, and they're bringing in about 60K a month. $2 million doesn't last very long if you're about 100K a month down. And if they're not at the end of that $2 million already, maybe they've already gone past it. Maybe there's another funder out there. He says, wondering out loud without any knowledge of anything else. But that's we were told by some pretty high-level influential media people in the game that he was at least losing $90,000 a month between outgoings and income. So $90,000 a month over $2 million is 21, 22 months. All the money's gone. What next?
If there wasn't someone like Oliver Plunket out there spewing vile, you might have to fund a whole range of horrible racists with smaller platforms, and just the admin on that is just too onerous. So to just have one big check going to one big fat disgusting piece of shit, the admin's heaps easier.